I think since Chris had to go catch his train because we're starting early, we'll just go ahead and get an update from you, Deepak, now early, and we might catch Chris again later.
Okay, so Jason, for the updates, I've moved everything to non-blocking wait. So all the stuff are timer driven now. Had some problems working with the timer, but now I wrote some of my own documentation and I figured stuff out. So eh, the wait and stuff is moved onto the timer. So while a Botspeak script is executing, I can in turn I can change variables and stuff like that. So I could toggle GPIOs while a particular script is going on, stuff like that. So yeah, and so the sysfs for that is working. I just got that up yesterday. Other than that, I have another sysfs created to check the state of the PRU processor, which could be used later on. So I can actually see whether or not a script is being executed and whether the script has finished executing and stuff like that.
Well, what about the return values?
Mm. So I have created another memory segment for that. So we will have two memory chunks, one for the input, which would be the script loading. Another one are the return values of execution of the script. So what the server is going to do is, in this case, it's going to I'm going to even handle the start script and run script, the downloading thing which Chris was talking about. So yeah, remember I recall in the last meeting he mentioned he doesn't want stuff to be executed right away they're um, if it's a script as the start script the start script label. So I'm trying to figure out a way to download the scripts as such and not execute them. That's one thing, and another thing was the IO stuff, the pin muxing. So those are the two things I was focusing on right now. I'll be coming back to returning the values just after I get at least one of them done, because returning the values isn't too much of a problem. I've already got the shared memory and data exchange thing done, so it's just a formality of writing that back in and then forwarding it to the user, or doing whatever you want with the return values. So I was more concerned with how to treat a pin as an input and an output, because you can either set a DIO or read a DIO according to bot script, and with the pin marking and the device tree overlays, I could either set something as an input or an output, but not both under the PRU's control, that is. So, and yeah, that's one problem I'm having right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that particular one is an interesting challenge because I think the expectation here is that the target has the ability to flip the direction.
Yeah, we could change the pinmux registers, but the problem is the driver has to know about it. So you can't we can't internally change it without the driver knowing about it. That's the problem, because the driver has to know the current state of the pin. So
Well,
we have to somehow get the driver to.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, Alexander. Yeah. So that's one thing.
Well,
Alexander, you are going to say something?
yeah, what's the use case for changing, from input to output at runtime? I mean, I can only think of when doing like a one-wire protocol, and they tend to be on the slower side. I wonder if you could do it from the driver entirely.
But how do you
So you're
synchronize
saying,
that? How do you synchronize that from the driver to
Right.
into the script that's running, right? Because because you need some way for the script the PRU to be able to message to the driver in order to switch the direction.
Right. And then you'd probably want it to wait for it because you probably wouldn't want to execute the next command until it's been done. I guess maybe that
Yeah.
is complicated.
So, where's Panto? Is he joining us? Because he is on IRC. I was expecting him to join.
On IRC.
Oh, okay. Looks like he's not there on IRC. Doesn't seem to be active. Okay. So other than that, I don't think I'm facing any problems as such. I'll be doing the I'll be working on the language infrastructure as such, that is supporting various kind of variables and return values and stuff like that. Once I figure this one thing out, so if I actually spent one day just reading the documents and trying to figure out if there was some way to configure this whole thing so that I the user could specify whether he wants the pin to be an input pin or output pin. Uh, so one way is
Just
to
add a mode instruction, I would think. Well, that's only useful if we actually have a mechanism for communicating back to the driver. But I don't know.
hmm, one hmm. No, because the device tree overlay would have a particular pin mux value, and I don't know whether it would be wise to just change it uh, just like that. I'm quite sure there should be a certain way to go about it. That's why Panto wasn't there this weekend. He wasn't on IRC, so I couldn't ask him that. But I went through all the docs again, and I figured it wasn't going to be simple.
Yeah.
So I can just not worry about that right now and work on the other stuff. I think that's what I'll be doing until I'll just check if Panto doesn't seem to be around on IRC. So I'll just discuss it once with Panto, and I'll see what's possible. If it's going to be a bit sticky right now, I'll just work on the other stuff, and we'll have to figure out some way to keep the input and output separate or dynamically configure them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a sort of version 1, I think it would be acceptable to have to do that yourself from user space, like from the command line or through another program.
Yeah. I would say that's probably fine for now. It'd probably need to be thought out at a high level at some point moving forward, but I think most programs are going to be just fine with doing something statically. This can we talk some about the timer implementation?
Yeah. So let's see. Where's my GitHub repository? GitHub. Yeah. So yeah. Once
See,
again, I'll just
remind me, the PRUs have their own timer. Is that what you're using?
yeah, I'm using the IEP timer.
Okay.
The inbuilt ones. Okay. So just give me a second. So, uh, if you could look at the PRU firmware source, PRU0 firmware.c. I'll just paste the link. One sec. Hmm. Yeah. Okay, paste. I okay. One sec. Yeah. Here's the link. Okay. Yeah. This it's updated with the timer line 203. So that's the timer initialization.
Oh, yeah, patch.
then even
Yeah, this is no different than the patches that you have in the Git repo, right? I think it's actually easier to see the changes looking at let me show you like this. So looking at that commit link, it's actually much easier to see what you did in order to implement the timer.
yeah, it's like, huh.
But this one here is not non-blocking, right? This is
One sec, I'll get my video back on. Mm, Huh,
Yeah, this is non-blocking.
that's
is it? So
it is
the
not
wait
blocking.
The
the
wait
wait
function immediately returns. It just starts the timer. It sets the compare register and starts the timer, right?
So but the event should tell it whether to execute the next instruction, right?
Well, there's the
Uh,
is waiting and is executing flags.
so once the timer times out, it'll say, okay, it's time to execute the next instruction. So if I have say wait for 500 milliseconds, it's going to set the compare register value that will time out at 500 milliseconds, and then it'll set the flag saying, uh, which will then say, okay, you can start executing again.
So you're setting in wait. Do you set? Yeah, you set is executing to false. Okay. But
Yeah, and
waiting is a running state, waiting on a timer event.
one sec, I couldn't get the last few words. There seems to be some disturbance here.
So the is waiting state means that they're still running, but you're in the middle of a wait
Yeah,
operation.
yeah.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, and one more thing, the single cycle instructions. So, I'm wondering if someone would be insane enough to send a wait command through there,
Sure.
because
Yeah, it should be able to
yeah,
handle that just for completeness sake.
I was wondering how to go about that because
Or
it
maybe just
didn't
ignore it.
seem.
I would make it a no op. I would handle it, but you can make it a no op.
Yeah, because as far as when I talked to Chris, he told it'll be mostly be used for changing variable values and states of GPI opens during execution of a script. So I don't think wait as such would make sense as a single command being sent in during script execution. There's already an option to pause the script if necessary. So
Um, one thought about the timer. So look, this is a 32-bit timer, I assume. Um,
yeah,
which so by that you get your number of clock cycles for 1 millisecond. So it looks like it's about 21 and a half seconds maximum with that timer. So you should be able to handle if someone says wait for 22 seconds. Um, I'm not sure the best way to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, hmm, okay. Well, hmm. We could split it into two wait instructions somehow, but uh, yeah. Where and how would I do that is the question.
Well, you could
I,
it would be
I
just you could have another variable where you store um, how many full counter events are left, and then the remainder
hmm,
in um, the actual compare register value, just using like modulus. Um, and so each time you get to the end of the timer, you'd then look to see if there needed to be another value loaded into the compare register. explaining that well.
No, no, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Hmm. I'm just wondering whether there's a better way, or rather a cleaner way, to
Well,
handle the weight. Hmm. Hmm.
or I mean, in the interest of moving forward with a first version, you could for now just say the maximum wait is 21 seconds. And anything more than that, you only wait 21 seconds, or whatever the full 21.4 seconds, or whatever.
Yeah, that seems fine for the first iteration.
Yeah.
So by the end of this week, I'm hoping to have a cleanly running inter let's say a server client interface, wherein a terminal interface, wherein people can actually download scripts as Chris wanted to do it, and then while the script is running, change variable values and stuff like that. I should have a small demo ready with all the with whatever functionality I have right now. Okay, I see Jason's
Oh.
has to leave.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so as I was saying, at the end of this week, I plan to have some sort of a mini prototype ready. The functionality wouldn't be that much. It's most probably will be limited to input, output, return values, etc. But
Mhm.
what I'm looking forward to is having a clean interface so that people should be able to visualize what they're going to get at the end of the day. As of now, it doesn't support PWM or ADC, but I'll add support for that later. But they should have an idea of what is capable or what they will be using. So that's what I'm looking at completing the first iteration by the end of this week, and have all the stuff cleaned up and ready to use, at least for the digital IO part. Then I'm going to add functionality for the PWM. I wonder why Panto didn't want me to use the PWM module, which is accessible by the PRU. So I had to discuss that too with him.
Right.
And do you see any advantage of making the other
Well,
PRU handle
I mean,
the PWM?
um the one disadvantage, I think disadvantage to using the actual PWM modules is that it would be difficult to sort of keep the kernel drivers in keep them, knowing the state of the PWM modules. You'd have to keep them informed of every change you've made, I think, um, just to be, driver friendly.
Hmm. So then in that case, even for the ADC modules, I would have to somehow hmm, because I'm planning at PWM and ADC next, as in once I complete my first iteration, and I found a nice SDK. Uh, uh, one sec, I'll just paste the link out here. Yeah, there we go. So, okay, yeah, yeah. So, have you had a look at this,
I've
Alexander?
not seen this now.
Yeah. So this guy has compiled like various examples with the PRU. Everything's in assembly. It uses the old driver, but it gives me a fair idea of how to access the various modules. He's access to PWM module, he's access the ADC module. So,
Right.
so I don't think adding functionality is going to be so much of a problem as compared to visualizing how the end product is going to look like and making it user friendly. As of now, it's very developerish. You can say an alpha version of the product or
Yeah.
of my project. So I somehow want to make it more intuitive, and also hopefully by the end of the GSoC, Chris could be using it in his classes. Uh,
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah. I mean,
do the LabVIEW integration, but sadly I don't have LabVIEW with me.
right. Yeah. I mean, it would be easy on the client side to just have a little a little Bash script or Python script or something that took like a file and uploaded it. So you could even just have, a dot Botspeak or whatever it is file. Um,
Hmm. As
just do
of
the
this,
read, load, execute.
hmm. As of this weekend, I was thinking of making a simple terminal, like just like a Python terminal, but a Botspeak terminal. You can just type in commands. It's going to execute them immediately, or you can have the start script, end script, then run script stuff. At the once you have like start script and end script, once you reach end script, it just downloads it locally. The Python um, the API I've given, which is currently running the server, that can download it and locally store it, and once I say execute script, it can start running it.
Right.
So
Um, yeah, I like the idea of the interpreter. That'd be fun. But now, so the waiting to execute, and the recording of scripts, I would think that would be beneficial to have more integrated than just in that Python server. Um, that
you mean
should
in the kernel driver?
yeah, either in the driver or in the PRU itself, though that would be complicated. But yeah, because that really
Well,
is part of the core interpreter functionality.
true, but I thought as of now, one would be quite tight on space, because as and when I start adding functionality for PWM and ADC and stuff like that, so the binary file itself would become huge. And while executing the
Right.
interpreter, assuming the person downloads like 4 or 5 scripts and decides to execute them one by one, it's going to cost the PRU a lot of memory.
Right.
So so I thought maybe it's best later on in the second iteration, maybe we can just have a kernel driver support, because
Yeah.
right now I'm waiting for uh, Panto said anytime this week we should be refactoring the uh, remote proc driver. So I
Oh,
thought rather than worrying about integrating everything into the driver right now and refactoring more code, I thought once we refactor the code, I can just add it to the kernel driver and have a alpha version of the product ready well earlier by this weekend, hopefully.
okay. What's changing with remote proc?
Everything. We're refactoring the whole thing. So as of now, it's extremely patchy, as in Meron stays and I mean Mats and Pantos code. Everything is on the same driver. So we're going to have a base rproc driver. On that, we're going to have different sorts of one driver for Botspeak, one driver for the PWM module, which was PWM firmware, which was developed by Panto, and another one for the LED one by Matt.
Right.
So we're going to separate everything, and
Uh,
yeah, and hopefully Panto wants to move it to mainline.
right. Cool.
So he wants to clean up everything, and for one, I thought if it's better if I have something demoable as soon as possible. So as of now, I'm keeping it in Python, and anyway, all the kernel code is going to get refactored. So I didn't want to mess with it too much and get an alpha version of the project out right now, as soon as possible. So that's where I'm going this week. Hopefully, by the end of this week, we can have some neat interpreter, and I can take a video of the demo and put it up on my blog, and hopefully even Chris can try out a few stuff.
Yeah.
I I'm really keen on the LabVIEW integration, but I don't know how I can work with LabVIEW. Is there Linux support for LabVIEW?
I'm not sure. Is LabVIEW one of the ones that costs a lot of money?
Yeah, it costs
It's
about, well,
education programs. Yeah. I'm not sure. I've never used it.
I've used it once before, but well, that wasn't on my PC.
Hmm.
So it's one of my friends. He he was working on some image processing stuff, and I used LabVIEW there. But other than that, I don't have much LabVIEW experience, number one. So I want to make even the alpha version a bit user friendly, so Chris could probably try it out, because I don't want Chris to, get stuck with some PRU specific problems.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I from the first iteration, I just want to try out whether the simple stuff is possible with LabVIEW, and yeah, go on from there rather than developing everything and figuring out Chris can't use it the way he wants. So I
Yeah.
want Chris to just try it out after every prototype is completed.
Yeah. That makes sense. What's the what is the LabVIEW integration? Does it export at once, or is it more sort of on the fly?
Uh, well, I'm not sure because I personally haven't used LabVIEW much, and I looked at the Botspeak site. From what I figured out, Chris has developed some libraries with which you can drag and so LabVIEW is a visual programming language.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
drag and drop blocks, and it generates Botspeak code, and then sends them over a HTTP or a TCP server. I'm not sure. It acts as a client and sends it to a particular port. That's why, as of now, my Python implementation is a TCP server. At the end of the day, he would require a TCP or HTTP server. I
Gotcha.
recall him mentioning something about an HTTP server, so he could have Botspeak working through a web browser. Or
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be ideal in my mind to have a nice RESTful API.
yeah, and that would be like fun developing it, because
Yeah.
I see many end use cases. For example, if you fit in the BeagleBone Black in a robot, you can open a browser and maybe even have some kind of like a app sort of interface wherein you can actually select buttons and toggle the states of uh, your wheels, or you could write simple code, which Botspeak code, which is transferred on the fly, and you can move your robot about. Or
Yeah.
basically, it'll be a very good educational tool.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah, it would be easy also to implement in that server, sort of like a file management system, so you could have a bunch of scripts saved and browse them and select one and upload.
Hmm. Yep, that's one thing. And remember the first hangout you guys had, which I missed? I was sitting in the bed, um,
Right.
where Chris was showing a couple of demos. Something, he was showing an open source project done by a Googler.
Yeah,
I don't remember if you recall.
there was pencil code.
Yeah, I think it was Pencil. Yeah, so wherein I think there was a turtle being controlled by
Yes.
writing commands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here you could actually uh, fit fit the BeagleBone into a robot, and you could actually see the robot move. I think that's what he has in his mind, like a browser controlled thing.
Yeah.
Anyone can open a browser in uh, irrespective of which environment they're working in. Just open a browser and type in a few commands, or maybe even have like a nice app-like interface with which you can play around. You could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Have a neat JavaScript library for all these stuff. So yeah, so at the end of the day, I'm aiming for a neat usable interface, because even if I write thousands of lines of code which no one can use other than developers, it's going to be pointless.
Right.
Okay, yeah, pencil code.net.
Yeah.
So
And your
hopefully by this,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just, uh, oh, never mind. You
Um,
were saying something?
well, you yeah. So for that, on the user space side, are you set on using Python for that server? Is that the plan?
Yep.
Okay.
Or would you prefer some other way to go about it?
No, no, just wondering. Yeah. So once you get to the HTTP side, yeah, there's a number of nice frameworks that you could use for that. Um,
Yep.
yeah, you've used Flask before, I remember. So That might be a
Device,
good.
Flask, a bit of. Yeah, you can do a lot of things once we understand what all interfaces could be made. Number one. Number two, I would be trying to minimize the Python code which interacts with the PRU, move most of it to the kernel.
Yeah,
So I think that would be nicer and cleaner. So it would make it more portable. You could move it to any language you want.
yeah,
Like say you could have a Ruby or
yeah,
Node version of it.
yeah. I mean, I think that well, right, because it's all just the sysfs interface.
Yeah, so maximize on the sysfs interface, minimize on the user space code. But yeah, that can wait for later. Once you have a usable browser interface, I guess once we start looking at different languages or integration with different languages, then we'd figure out what to do. So I don't think that's too
Yeah,
much of a concern in the first integration. I mean, first iteration.
yeah,
So once Chris knows what to expect from the project and he could bring in a few more requirement changes, I'd be cool with that. So I just want to make sure that everything's going to be integrated well
yeah. I
at the
think
end
that a
of the
good
day. Like,
goal for user interface simplicity is to be able to easily do it from the command line, just using those sysfs files. So you should be able to just echo
echo,
uh,
yeah.
command into file, and everything should work that way.
Yeah, actually, a nice way to do it is one more way. Okay, I wouldn't say the nicest way, is to just have a file and have a basically move the simple Botspeak to bytecode logic, which I'm currently keeping in Python as the compile.py module,
Yeah,
moving that to the kernel and have a sysfs attribute exposed to just dump in the Botspeak code and that'll take care of the rest. So
yeah,
some something like that.
yeah,
That would
definitely.
be nice.
I don't think that would be hard to do.
Is there a Lexiniac for the which I could use in the kernel by any chance?
Is there what?
A Lex and Yak.
A Lex and
Lexiniac.
Yak?
A Lexiniac module for compiler tools.
Oh, I don't know.
So it's a Lexer and a
Right.
parser basically.
Yeah.
Parser generator.
Um,
Because that would be that would make stuff a lot comfortable. Or another way is to have a FIFO in case I have to keep it in user space for now. I could make it a FIFO until the RPROC code is refactored, then move
right.
to the driver. That's one way. In case you just want a file interface and just see how it works out. So
Well, I mean, it's
that's
not,
a nice
it's
way.
not, it's tokenizing. It's pretty deterministic. I mean, even if you're uploading a big script, it's still, just command or instruction by instruction. So it's not, the logic of it is not all that complex.
Yeah, it is quite easy, but I remember in the Raspberry Pi implementation, there was a couple of compiler tools used. Well, I think the whole language, as in once you get to the if statements and labels and stuff, would
Right.
it makes the code cleaner. It's not that it's hard, well, it just makes it cleaner.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think it should be too much of a problem. A few hundred lines max, like a couple of hundred lines, yeah. So I wouldn't mind it at all. I'd do it. Even Jason seemed fine with the idea of moving the tokenizer into the driver. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering at what point of time should it be a concern? Because my primary aim is to get the browser thing to work because this is going to be more of a developer tool. Like the sysfs interface, I would never expect well the end user to directly use sysfs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's so with the compiler in user space. So currently, right, it's just you sort of only have that Python interface for the end user. Whereas if you move the tokenizer to the kernel driver, then it's sort of more open to any user interface because it's a lot less that the user has to do or the user space library writer. But of
Yeah,
course, that's sort of end goal user interface stuff. So you definitely don't need to worry about that now.
yeah. I just want Chris to give me a thumbs up once I'm done with the first iteration. If he can somehow figure out that it's going to be useful to him, then yeah, he could. Or even if it isn't useful, even if the primary prototype isn't useful to him, he can definitely give me inputs on what all I could add to make it useful. And he's the one who has the most experience with Botspeak and people using it. So
Oh yeah. Yep.
any clue when he's joining in?
Um, I'm not sure. I wonder if maybe we should
Just come back later.
pause now to maybe I don't know if we can ping Jason in the chat here. He seems to still be around. Maybe if Chris shows up, we could start back in.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know unless
And
you have more questions specifically for me. But
well, no, not really.
yeah,
Unless you're planning on downloading LabVIEW and trying out a few stuff.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see if I can get Jason in the chat.
Okay. Hmm. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know if I think he's the one that has to stop the recording.
yeah, I guess so because I don't think it's possible to pause as
Yeah.
in for us to pause the. So anything else? Any other questions you had?
Um, Not at this point, I don't think.
I wasn't really happy with the implementation of weight. Well, it works fine. Somehow it just didn't seem clean enough. I don't know. And it was extremely painful getting the weight to work. It took me 2 days longer than I expected. It's the first time I got stuck in this project, and I don't know. It just refused to work at several
Yeah,
points, and I couldn't figure out why. And Panto wasn't about, so
right. Yeah, let me go back to that. What don't you like about it?
I don't know. The overall architecture I've used like flags, and I was just wondering if there's a better pattern, better way
No,
to
I mean this is the non-blocking way to do it. You need a flag.
because I'm not too familiar with design patterns and stuff. So I was wondering if there's a, a cleaner way to handle such stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you want to be nitpicky and clean it up, you don't need both the is waiting and is executing flags.
Oh no,
Because
I kept that for future use. For example, if say you want to figure out what state, okay, so you want to figure out as of now there's a sysfs interface, so that from the user space you can figure out whether the PRU is executing a script or not. So if it's not executing a script, you could figure out whether it's underweight or whether it's
oh,
actually halted.
got you. Because there's other times it's not
Yeah, so
executing.
so I just thought of that and kept both of them.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. No, I mean I think this is the way to do it.
if this is fine, I think that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get back once Chris comes. So
Yeah.
so I'll log out. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Talk soon.
Yeah. Okay. Goodbye.
See ya.